What if the problem has never been the content? And what if you never found yourself staring at a blank screen with that blinking cursor just taunting you ever again? And all it required from you was to implement and learn the very simple 20-minute daily practice. It's actually 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, that has completely changed my life and the life of so many of my clients. And what this daily practice ultimately allows you to do is turn what you're already doing into your most relatable and your most profitable content. And this is actually backed by neuroscience to increase your happiness and your sense of fulfillment from your work, which is really important to me because those of you that have known me for a little while know that the reason that I do everything I do for the real estate industry is because I lost my sister after she could not keep her business afloat many years ago, and she lost her life to depression as a result. And so I have made it my mission to serve the real estate industry, which has the second highest rate of depression, and to serve and advocate for everyone that is struggling to kind of carve a path and make a business that makes sense for your actual life. So I can already guess and already know that you've tried all of the things and all of the typical advice out there. And a lot of it is advice that I practice and use, right? So you're told to post more, and you're told to do that, to use templates and to batch the content. And that's great for people like myself who have made these habits part of our life for years. And for people like myself that actually are creators by trade, it comes a lot more naturally and a lot easier to us. But if you're a real estate agent or a broker or maybe a transaction coordinator or something like that, it probably doesn't quite come so easily. And so none of those things really solve the problem, and they just become a bunch of random tactics without an overarching strategy that makes sense for you, the person that you are, and the behavioral psychology that make up who you are, and the stories in your head about who you are and what you do that make up your business and the path that you follow. So ultimately, there's cognitive dissonance, my friend, because there's this gap between the life that you're actually living and what you feel that you can put into words for your audience. And so most of this content marketing advice that you're used to actually makes that gap worse, and the cognitive dissonance you're experiencing around it much worse, which increases your anxiety and your imposter syndrome and your insecurity when it comes to creating content. And here's the funny thing that most of you will tell me that when you're in front of your clients, you know what to say. But for some reason, you just freeze up in front of that blinking cursor, right? So the problem is actually not that you don't understand what to say, it's that you're not really sure quite how to access it. And that's what this is really all about. So I heard this really wonderful talk recently. Dr. Rick Hansen, neuropsychologist at UC Berkeley, was doing, and I took so many amazing things away from it. Definitely go check him out. But one thing that I think that he said that's super relatable and easy to understand is that the brain is like Velcro for negative experiences, right? And like Teflon for positive ones. It's actually hardwired this way as a survival mechanism. And so the way that that translates for so many of us, especially high achievers and high performers, workaholics, is that no matter what, at the end of most days, we're not remembering our wins. And so, we're not remembering um, the all of the good, meaningful nuggets that come out of the day. Instead, we're remembering that listing we didn't get, or the call that we didn't get around to for whatever reason, or that thing that's been on our to-do list for weeks or months that we just keep finding other things to put in front of, right? So guess what? That's not weakness, my friend. It's biology. Okay? So you're not allowed to shame yourself for it anymore. But here's what I do want you to know: this is fixable if you know how to work with it. And that's why I want to introduce you to my Roses and Thorns method and invite you to take place and take part in a 21-day activation challenge. So this is actually a 4-week process. When you purchase, you're going to get access to the first module right away that's going to explain how the whole process works. So you're getting a 7-day free trial, okay? And then if you decide, heck yes, I want to commit to this, I want to implement this habit and learn how to leverage it so that I don't have to be working so hard and spinning out in this shame and guilt cycle when it comes to my content anymore. I'm so done with that. If that is something that feels relatable to you and something that you absolutely want to integrate into your life and your business, you're in the right place, because I have developed this Roses and Thorns method to help you monetize your daily growth journey while scaling your business, whether you are just starting out or whether you have a huge business and a decade or more experience. It's not going to matter, because this is going to allow you to step into a more role model era where you're no longer asked to be an expert, because guess what? Nobody believes in fake experts anymore. So let me just take you right in to what you're actually going to get access to behind the scenes and give you a little preview of this first module. So all we're doing here is learning to integrate a daily practice, 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening. If you want them to be longer, that's great, but I just want to start small and simple so it feels attainable for you no matter how busy you are. This is totally doable, okay? So each day you're going to start off by putting pen to paper and just downloading all of your thoughts of all the things that you have on your plate of what's going on. And then we're going to organize them using the Eisenhower Matrix. This is not mine. It was actually developed many, many years ago, obviously, with Eisenhower. But ultimately, what it's going to do is help us to get really intentional about our day, stop spinning out in the things that don't matter, and start to also ultimately help us to draw and recognize patterns in our behavior and our productivity, which you'll learn more about in the reflection process. So just for now, you're going to download all of your thoughts in a brain dump, and then you're going to organize them into what is urgent and important, meaning that it absolutely must be done and it must be done yesterday. What is important but not urgent, those are things we're going to schedule for another time. Things that are urgent but not necessarily important, those we can delegate, and you're going to learn how to be a much better delegator through this process naturally. And then also what we need to eliminate, maybe what is just the noise or the shiny objects and things that are not going to keep us in alignment with our overarching goals. And I'll let you in on a little secret. I actually write down my annual, quarterly, monthly, and weekly goals every single day. It helps me to really stay aligned with the direction that I am heading. And I don't mind if I don't reach my goals. They are just meant to be a North Star to help me set the course, okay? Now, in the evening, what you're going to do, this is this truly, truly, truly most valuable part. This is where you're going to reflect on your roses and your thorns. This concept should not be foreign to most of you. It's often practiced around dinner tables or when we're trying to get to know each other and different things like that. And it's a great way to help reactivate a village or cultivate a sense of community. So I actually leverage it this way. And all you're going to do is in the evening, at the end of the workday, you're going to journal the roses, meaning what went well? What are you proud of? What are the micro wins that we can extract from the day? Because I want to help rewire your brain to focus on those positives, because the more that you do that, the more your perspective will change. And it is your perspective that determines your reality and your experience and the sense of fulfillment that you are getting from your daily journey, so that you're not obsessed with the goals, which ultimately tend to keep you away from the goals, actually. So then you're also going to reflect on your thorn or your thorns from the day. So what was hard? What didn't go as planned? And then also I want you to reflect on what you might do differently. And the true nugget of gold here is for you to practice critical thinking and extract, okay, what is the meaningful takeaway here that's relevant, sure, to me in my life and my business or whatever, but what would be relevant to the audience? And that is going to be the seed of your content. So from the reflection to the content is actually pretty simple, and it's a practice that's going to become more natural over time. And what you learn inside this challenge is that we are fighting perfectionism every single day. Perfectionism is the enemy of profit when it comes to content. And I know that's really hard in the real estate industry, where everyone likes to come off like they're perfect and polished. But I promise you that polish is the enemy of profit, and so is perfection. So if you are someone that like myself has struggled with perfectionism and imposter syndrome and insecurity in those ways, and visibility because of it over the years, then you are definitely going to experience growth from this activation. So let's say that you had a listing presentation and you bombed it, like every agent does at some point. So the thorn in your reflection that day would be that you bombed that listing presentation. You froze when they asked about your marketing strategy, and you ultimately just said something generic that they'll never probably remember, or at least you believe that. So the takeaway would be that preparation really isn't about memorizing a script that sets you up for anxiety and nerves, and to feel like missed a step, or just put you in like kind of on stage that way, because it does cause you to get performative. And instead it's about knowing which true things you would say if the pressure disappeared, and helping you to reconnect into that. And so then content from that might look like, I knew exactly what to say the whole drive over. The second they asked me to prove it, the words disappeared. Here's what I'm doing differently next time. See how that vulnerability is a hook and creates vulnerability? That's how every thorn is a content seed. Okay? So over the 21-day arc, there's going to be 3 phases, ultimately one huge transformation, but I think you're going to experience some other mini transformations along the way. And ultimately, this is going to show you how to take any kind of challenge, or, whether it be for forgiveness or for self love or for content creation or for yoga, whatever it might be. It's going to show you how to go on one of those guided challenge journeys and monetize the growth along the way by being authentic about what's going well and what's not. And what's interesting is you're going to fall in love with failure, because you're going to realize that the thorns have the tendency to be more profitable content than the roses, as long as you're not trauma dumping. And there's a big difference between transparency and trauma dumping. And we're going to talk about that inside as well. So the 3 phases include root, which is going to be days 1 through 7. So we're just starting to build the habit. We're quietly noticing our inner critic and learning to silence them. And then the friction is that we experience, we're going to learn to recognize and understand what that is, and that it's proof that the process is actually working. Then in days 8 through 14 in phase 2, which is bloom, we're going to recognize that there are new neural pathways forming. We're rewiring our brain for a much positive, more fulfilling experience. We're going to find patterns evolving in our story, and we're going to work on starting to draft our first pieces of content as a result of our journaling. And then finally, in phase 3, we'll challenge ourselves to harvest. This is days 15 through 21, where automatically we're going to start realizing that this is a valuable part of our morning and our sort of mental clock out process. And we're going to start to recognize the value in turning these reflection periods into content and anchoring the practice for life. I think you're going to get a lot more out of this than just content, but you will get content. So let's talk about what you're going to build. Of course, a living content bank. So, built entirely from your own daily action steps, your thoughts, your challenges, the spontaneous brainstorms, all of that. That's actually going to feel authentic. I hate that word now, but it will. It's going to allow you to stand out and be differentiated. And it's going to be endlessly reusable, repurposable, and allow you to monetize. Of course, now you're also learning to implement a new daily ritual. It's not a routine, it's a ritual. So there's a lot less pressure, but there's just 20 minutes in the day, 10 in the morning, 10 in the evening. And I think you're actually going to love this so much, you'll spend more time doing it. I know of one recent client that spends like an hour and some days much more, just free writing this stuff. And then that informs all of our content. So, anyway, 20 minutes, which will reframe how you experience your work. And this habit is going to outlast the challenge and allow you to monetize your growth journey, like I said. And then finally, I think you're going to start to reconnect with a new sense of identity, one who reflects, one who minds meaning, one who creates from a place of truth versus performance and perfection, which I promise only alienate more people than they attract. So if you have a real career with real wins and real setbacks, you do belong here. So, real estate agents, I'm talking to you. Let's turn those listings and the losses and the client stories into content that actually sounds like you instead of every real estate agent. And hello, coaches and consultants and educators. I see you, CRE credit advisors and educators and workshop hosts. Hello, friends. This is your call to build more authentic, story-driven presence that will facilitate a level of trust with your audience that you have never experienced before and allow the content that you're teaching to actually stand out in a way that will have people buying into you and the way that you teach, regardless of what the content is about. And that will help with that imposter syndrome you feel. And service entrepreneurs, so the transaction coordinators and the lenders and the title and all the other people that have locally based businesses. This is your call to stop performing for your audience, to start sharing what you actually know and who you really are behind the scenes. So, we're going to walk away with 21 days of the prompts, right? Which really is a practice that lives on. So you're going to go through that morning matrix, you're going to go through the evening reflection, and all of it's going to be structured. You're going to have the support. You're going to walk away with a starting content library that's going to ultimately feed so much of your business. You have no idea. It's one of those things where you don't know what you don't know yet. And all of it's going to be backed by science to help you extract more meaning, more fulfillment, more happiness, more joy from your business and your content process without burning out, because ultimately that's what I'm here to help you do, is scale without burning out and to stop getting to the point where you want to burn down your business. So this is where you are going to discover just how much Your growth journey matters. It's so much more than you think. The first 7 days are free. Come find out what your daily action steps have really been trying to tell you. Get more intentional. Join this 21-day challenge. As I said, the first 7 days are free, so there's no risk, and you get to find out all the goodies in the process as well. We kick off the live activation 21 days on April 10th, 2026. The portal will open at midnight, and I can't wait to see you there.